Pray together. Loving and gracious God, we come with our hearts open, our minds open, with joy and with anticipation, and with gratitude for this study and for its ongoing enlightenment. I pray, God, for a good wrap-up to the study of Ruth. It's been enjoyable and useful so far, and help us then to apply these things in our lives so that we trust you more deeply. Always in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Jim, did Lori arrive?
No, she's on the road.
She's on the road?
She
Okay.
had a little light problem that held her from leaving about 5-10 minutes, 6:30, so she's just heading down from Flagstaff right now.
Okay.
Well, why don't we do something radical, and why don't we turn to Ruth chapter 4?
Oh, wow, okay. That would be great. This is radical.
Just to throw a little curveball into the works here.
Yes.
Let's go to Ruth chapter 4. And we'll finish out the story. I've enjoyed having some of you read for us. So would someone please begin? And it's 18 verses long. So somebody can start reading, and when you get tired or when you get scared of doing your genealogy and all the things, you can wait and someone else will take over. So
Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. Just then, the family redeemer he had mentioned came by. So Boaz called out to him, "Come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you." So they sat down together. Then Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. And Boaz said to the family redeemer, "You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I am the next in line to redeem it after you." The man replied, "All right, I'll redeem it." Then Boaz told him, "Of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family." "Then I can't redeem it," the family redeemer replied, "because this might endanger my own estate. You redeem the land. I cannot do it." Now in those days it was the custom in Israel for anyone transferring a right of purchase to remove his sandal and hand it to the other party. This publicly validated the transaction. So the other family redeemer drew off his sandal as he said to Boaz, "You buy the land." Then Boaz said to the elders and to the crowd standing around, "You are witnesses that today I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. And with the land I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow from Mahlon, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband and to inherit the family property here in his hometown. You are all witnesses today."
very good.
So if she had a child, it was to carry on the legacy of her dead husband,
Yeah.
not her.
Yeah, and that's the Levirate law, and we'll review that again. But yeah,
Okay.
And that was prescribed in Deuteronomy, that when when the male dies and has no heir, if he has a relative that's a male, the closest relative is supposed to carry on and with his wife raise up children for his name to go, but it's the family name too. So.
And so if she had a second child, would the second child be the name of the new person?
I don't know that. It may just be the family name, or it may, yeah. I'd have to look and see if it says a child or children. Yeah. We're going to review that. So, okay. I adjusted the volume for people at home. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Ethel was speaking, I didn't see it showing much, so I boosted it up a little. Okay.
Thank you.
Which means I wasn't paying attention, so I don't know where we left off.
Chapter
11.
Okay. All right. Would someone then go ahead and, let's see, yeah. Someone pick up at verse 11 and read through the end if you're willing, or as far as you can, and I'll help.
And the elders and all the people standing in the gate replied, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, from whom all the nation of Israel descended. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. And may the Lord give you descendants by this young woman who will be like those of our ancestor Perez, the son of Tamar in Judah." So Boaz took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife. When he slept with her, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women of the town said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has now provided a redeemer for your family. May this child be famous in Israel. May he restore your youth and care for you in your old age. For he is the son of your daughter-in-law, who loves you and has been better to you than 7 sons." Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. The neighbor woman said, "Now at last Naomi has a son again." And they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. This is the genealogical record of their ancestor Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Midabab. Midabab was the father of Nashon. Nashon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. And Jesse was the father of David.
Now repeat that after me.
No.
She got me, it's one of her names.
Okay,
That kind of answers, remember when we were talking about how she went to the feet of Boaz? This one is very explicit and says that he took her as his wife and she became pregnant. So doesn't that kind of answer that she really did sleep at his feet because that was what culturally they did?
yes.
I know I do that, yeah. I sleep at Tom's feet. The right foot I prefer.
But I have a quick question though. It says Boaz was the father of Obed, but I thought the father would have been her dead husband.
Interesting, yeah. And so it must be that it's carrying on the family name
Okay.
for him,
Yeah.
but it was the family name that because they didn't believe in resurrection, they didn't have that yet. So they thought the only way that you make it through to the day of the Lord was to have your family line continue.
Okay.
So your male offspring were the ones that did that. So if all your male offspring died away, there was no way to continue it. So, okay, so I think that's probably gonna be.
Isn't it kind of amazing though, after you learn about Ruth and her struggles, then you find out the lineage is the family of David, the lineage of Jesus, which is.
She can do a walking down.
So she was an extremely important person,
She was.
involving of the lineage of her. Jesus.
I'm not gonna find it. Okay, well, have you ever known anyone named Obed?
I heard someone say it, Obed.
Well, I have one up on you then, because I know of I'll call him a young man, it looks to me like he's maybe in his 30s, Obed Martinez. And he runs my favorite toy store. It's the Los Martinez One-Stop Shop on 51st.
Okay.
And it's a big, like not an outlet, what do they call that? A liquidation or something. And he just expanded, they're building, they've taken over the whole building now. I just went there Monday after my doctor appointment, and I didn't buy anything.
51st and what?
Well, it's 51st and it's between Grand and Camelback. So, it's just south of Grand, maybe a quarter mile or so. But every time I'm in the neighborhood, or even not even close, I still have to go there. Because, anyway, and this is neither here nor there, but he's named Obed, come on. So, and I recognize that as a biblical name, so I,
Does he realize it's a biblical name?
oh yeah,
I'll bet he
Oh,
does.
yeah.
I bet he does too.
I'll bet he does.
yeah. And he's a good friend, and basically remodeled our house, because when I got here doing all our projects, I got so much discount stuff there.
Oh, good.
That would be interesting how his parents chose his name.
We'll have to, well, his mother is Felix. I've never known a woman named Felix. So,
Is she a kitten?
yeah, Felix the cat. This is totally off the subject. Has everybody signed off at home? Because I'm digressing. I better get back to the actual Bible. So let me please direct our attention to, with keeping these questions in mind, in our study of the Bible always, we can say, well, what is this telling us or implying about who God is?
Redemption.
What is it telling us or implying who we are? And what is it telling us or implying what our relationship has been like and is supposed to be like? So those are always good Bible study questions for anything that you go into. And so as we look at some of these traditions that are so prominent in this story, and it starts right off the bat because it's there at the city gate. And we've talked about that before, that in those times, the people who, if there was anything that needed to be settled or witnessed or anything like that, they didn't have, the kinds of things we're used to. They didn't have a recorder of deeds, or you couldn't search on the internet, and didn't have a phone book. They didn't have birth certificates. They didn't have any of this stuff. They didn't have marriage licenses. So, but all that stuff was ordered in this oral culture in a way that obviously worked for them for many, many centuries. And so part of that was you need authoritative decision making. And whether or not sometimes that decision making goes our way or not, we can't live without settling things. In fact, Jim and I are supposed to have a fist fight later today. I'll tell you about that. So, yeah, that came up on Tuesday. So, so they had the elders, and like we're used to seeing, and I go back to Dances with Wolves. There they are sitting around. Remember when he lost his hat out hunting buffalo or something, and one of the braves is wearing his hat in the tribal meeting. And now, for their custom, that would have been okay for him, but for the culture that John Dunbar came from, he's like, that's my hat. And they still didn't quite have their language going. And so now you had something that had to be settled amongst the leaders there. And the person who took the hat and found it, well, it was obviously his, but he said, well, it was lying on the ground. He didn't want it anymore. All right, well, and so there you go. And so he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. And that was his, but the others observed, well, obviously he does want it, and obviously it was his. And so now we have a conflict. And do you remember what they did to settle it? Okay, they worked out, give it back, but have him give you something in return. And they did a trade. And so, he had a knife in a sheath, I think, and they traded it back, or something. No, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. He kept the hat and gave him a knife for it. Give him something for the hat. I had that backwards. So it was, he was able to keep it, but the tribe said, let's not linger in a dispute here. You need to give us, and he gave him a knife and a sheath. And so they said, good trade. All right, the reason I bring that up all the time is in tribal culture, I love the way that they talk together. And so as we hear Old Testament, I love to hear that in kind of a broken Native American English accent, because it helps me to realize that we're in tribal language, and the phrases they use and the rituals they do have meaning that goes beyond what my background and culture says. So they would sit at the city gate. That was the gathering place. And it was not only for, because that was a common place, but if people were coming and going, the elders were the ones making sure they knew who was coming and going and what their business was. And that was where you did all of that. So Boaz, as Naomi predicted, he's not going to rest until this is taken care of. Up at the crack of dawn, goes to the gates, and he not only the people who are there, he tries to gather other witnesses. He wants to do something official, so that shows you how they did it. And they all sat down, like in the Dances with Wolves, and they knew that they had something to witness or settle or something they needed to hear. And they did what was called judging for the people. And it wasn't simply like a judge in robes like we have for criminal things. This was the collective wisdom and helping the people come to settlement of whatever their issues were. And it wasn't always an adversarial thing. It was, this needs to be witnessed and done properly. Oh, okay. Did you have something else?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
just said it just needed to be appointed.
All right. So Boaz went up to the gate, sat down there, and behold, the next of kin of whom Boaz had spoken came by as well. So this other possible Goel, kinsman redeemer, who was a closer relative to Naomi and to actually Elimelech, her dead husband, than Boaz was. Boaz knew that I first got to go through the process because I'm not the one who rightfully can step up. It's the ball's in his court unless he passes it to me. Now, I'm going to look at some of the references here. If you want, let's go to Deuteronomy 16. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Last book of the Pentateuch. Penta, 5, Tuch, teachings, the 5 teachings. Moses is attributed as the author by some, by many.
Is it 16?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 16. And would somebody read for us when you get there, verse 18? Deuteronomy means second law, by the way.
Verse 18,
Or the law continued, volume 2.
Judges, appoint judges and officials for each of your tribes in every town the Lord your God has given you, and they shall judge the people fairly. Do not pervert justice for a show of partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the innocent. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God is giving you.
Very good. So you see how this was baked in to the law that was given to Moses, and this is the law, volume 2, Deuteronomy. That's what that means. So when they were laying out how they're going to get along with each other, we talked about the 10 commandments. The first ones talk about how we are to relate to God, and then after that, how we're to relate to one another. Well, this is a continuation of that, and so to relate to one another, we're going to have some way of settling things, and this was how they did it. Appoint tribal chiefs, if you will, judges, and then they will fairly handle disputes. And it goes on to say they won't take bribes, they really have to be honorable and on the up and up. So when you hear this background in Deuteronomy, just from what Jim read there, what does that tell us about God? What is God concerned with? Fairness, yeah. Yeah, justice. And it tells us that God is savvy to fallen humanity. You need this because if you're left to your own devices with no way of calling it before the community for the ways to follow my ways, you'll twist it. And we can't even have the corruption among the leaders. That's why It's not just one chief that does this. That may be, now they may have a tribal patriarch, and oftentimes that patriarch would have the most weight in what they say, but not until after hearing from all of the leaders, so that people can say this is on the up and up and this is trustworthy. So that tells us that God is very concerned about us getting along and finding ways to settle matters without the fist fight that Jim and I are anticipating coming up here, to do it in a way that's just and peaceful and acceptable. So God's really concerned with that. Now that's no big.
Stomachache, I'm gonna have to leave.
Okay. Now that's no big surprise to us that God is concerned with fairness and justice, but it's good for us to see that it is baked into how this is all laid out. It didn't just come from, somebody thought, hey, this is a good idea.
Pastor Jim, in relationship to today, land was a very precious gift to the Jews.
Yes.
And I think even today, it's considered their greatest asset and their greatest gift from God. Sometimes maybe that's why there's so much turmoil, because they take this so seriously that this was their covenant with God.
Right.
Yeah.
And we run into that. We run into that not only in the Holy Land, but all over the world. When people live on a land for a good number of years, and take ownership, if you will, and then become displaced, that happens throughout history. And so how do you manage that? And we have that today, that people try to constantly remind that this land was occupied and then colonized, and what do we do with that?
Ukraine and Russia.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so it's not unique to the Holy Land, it's not unique to us. And there's gonna be problems with that. And can we learn to deal with that without murdering one another or being totally at odds? And in many cases, we haven't learned that lesson yet. We haven't learned how to settle those disputes because if people say, well, you need to return the land to the Native Americans, well, really, we would have to, what about the Spaniards? What about the Incas? It becomes impossible to settle that because of the tides of history and how those things change. So one of the things that this tells us about us is that in order to relate to God, ultimately, everything belongs to the Lord. What is the psalm number, Ethel? The earth is the Lord and all that is in it, all cattle and sheep on the hills. Everything belongs to God. So, see, now Ethel's ashamed because she didn't know the number. She doesn't know I don't remember it off the top of my head. But the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. So that causes us to be humble with our ownership. We may feel like we're king of the hill for a moment, but this is a gift of God. How do we handle that in a way that is reflective of our gratitude and also respectful for our neighbors? And part of that, with God's concern for justice, was, well, those of you who have fields that produce in a good year, don't harvest everything. Leave some at the edges for those who don't have. The foreigner, the widow, and that's how Ruth came to Boaz's field.
So when a group feels and knows it's a gift from God, and who the one that is challenging that, they really don't care because they don't believe in God.
Well, yeah.
So then that becomes, so are the people supposed to be forgiving and just give it up, or do they go and get the land that they feel is still their gift?
Yeah. And how do you settle that? I don't have an answer to that other than to say we are guided by those principles that, first of all, it belongs to God, So whatever privilege I have, I'm now a steward. So I have a house, and I'm a steward of that. I have property, I have something. If I owned a farm, I'm a steward. When I've counseled couples, there's a prayer, I wish I could think of it's one of my resources, that talks about when a couple comes together and marries and establishes a household, a new family, that one of the gifts of marriage is not only the two of them and they mutually support and prosper together, but that they build a household that is a blessing, that is a welcome space, that is and it helps the community prosper. And I've known people who have really lived that out. Think of the culture that we have to the south of our border. What is the phrase, mi casa es su casa?
My house is your
And
Now-
in Hawaii, Ohana, they do not own the property. They bishop, they rent it,
Mhm.
but it's their responsibility to
But they're
do
having
it.
a year lease.
Yeah.
And now to take that, and sometimes I could say mi casa es su casa. Do I really mean it?
Yeah.
You could take it literally. Now, when I spent time with the poor people in Mexico and mi casa es su casa, they lived it. Now, that didn't mean I was going to take possession and kick them out, but it was their hospitality. That was part of it. So like for a couple who gets married, I'm not telling them, okay, you establish something and then give it all away. No, establish this, it will bless you to bless others.
When you say that, it reminds me of the song by Peter, Paul, and Mary. In the 70s, it was the wedding song that everybody played at the weddings. Come together and you become one and you establish a home and everything.
Mhm.
Do you know what song I'm talking about?
I do.
Is it There Is Love?
Yep.
There is love.
There's,
There is love.
I remember that being a very popular wedding
Oh my
song.
gosh, yeah.
And
It's everywhere.
the last time I heard it was when I had my son sing it at my daughter's wedding.
Oh,
There
really?
you go.
Oh.
So, pretty cool. All right, well, that gives you some of the background and some of the clue of what God's concerned with and how humans try to work that out, and that we need a group of people to help us understand God's plan and how we're going to do this in a way that the community can live together. So Boaz brings the elders together and he finds the near kinsman, and so Boaz says, hey, come and sit next to me. And so he sat down. He took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. Then he said to the next of kin, and this is done in conversation where everybody can hear what's going on. Naomi, who's come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land which belonged to our kinsman Elimelech, which means my God is king, remember, Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it, and this is where I hear the tribal language. We don't speak this way, so I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here. Now, I don't know that there was an actual purchase with money, with an exchange. I think it's claim it, take responsibility for it. I think that might be what's behind the word buy here. I don't think he's got to come up with a sack of gold and give it to somebody. But now Elimelech's land needs to be claimed, and all that goes with it, Naomi and responsibility, Ruth. So he starts out with the land, which this near kinsman's going to jump at that. Oh, land, I could use a lot more land. Everybody wants more land. That will really help me. And then in that true tribal fashion, if you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not tell me, that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you. So he's gone by the book here. And so the near kinsman says, oh, yeah, I'll redeem it, I'll claim it. So then Boaz, knowing that he probably was impulsive thinking about the land, I think Boaz probably was wise to what was coming next. And so he said, Boaz continues, the day that you claim the field, from the hand of Naomi, you also are claiming Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of the dead, in order to restore the name of the dead to his inheritance. And we know that that's part of the Levirate law. Well, for whatever reason, apparently he had a family, and because he's concerned about his estate and what he's leaving to his sons, presumably, or son.
You're talking about Boaz?
No.
I'm sorry, no, this is the near kinsman.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they never say a name.
From all we can tell, there's no indication that Boaz had another wife or children. He may have been on his own. At least that's what we have to imply from the story. But the near kinsman, because of what comes next, you can infer, oh, he has other concerns. He probably has offspring that he has to take care of, and to add more heirs may or may not fit in with his desires. So the next of kin then said, oops, I can't redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. What do you have for a phrasing in verse 6?
Endanger.
Endanger my inheritance? What else? What's another translation?
Endanger my own estate.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna look and see.
Just as ruin. I cannot.
Yeah, and even going further in that, in the New Living, it says endanger my own estate,
Right.
My ruin.
inheritance. And what New Living Translation does there, they didn't use the word estate that we would, but we can relate to that. Oh, an estate, that has to do with passing on to heirs.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where that comes from. So he's very concerned that if I start to have more children, this has already been kind of settled in my family what's going to be happening. That's going to be too much upheaval. That's me reading into the text. It doesn't say that. That's my interpretation. So take it for what it's worth. Ethel.
And would it be a situation, let's say that he had children already and he had a firstborn son, which would be the one who would inherit.
Mhm.
But because he has taken on this responsibility, the son he has with Naomi would be their firstborn son, which could stand in front of his son.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would, who knows what kind of,
Right,
it might even bring enmity between the offspring and
right.
goodness.
So he would become more of an heir than the
Than his own son, because he has taken Ruth on, and this is Ruth and Mahlon's first son, therefore he would take precedence.
So it's not just to be, we have to infer this, but it's not just that, well, I don't really want Ruth.
Yeah.
I mean, that may have been part of it, but probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have, or I really can't start taking responsibility for Ruth and Naomi. I've got enough to handle here, or whatever it is, and then I don't, if I think about having more heirs. So all of that could have been in his mind, but very quickly, at least the way the story presented, oops, can't do that.
He has a temple.
I'd love the land, but never mind.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I think Boaz knew would happen all along. And he was eager for it to work out this way. But he took a risk. He had to present it to him first. And you're the one that could redeem this. That's the only right way to do it. I may want this. I think Boaz wanted it to come out this way. But rather than manipulate, he did it fairly and openly. Maybe with a little twist where he talked about, buy the land. Oh, by the way, you also have to do the Levirate. Okay, so, all right, so we get to verse 7. Now, this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchange. To confirm the transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the manner of attesting in Israel. So, I'm sure if I took off my sandal and put it in front of you, none of you would really be interested in it.
I don't want your house.
So where does this come from?
Sushu is Yishu.
And so I want to get back to this now. Where would that that's a tribal custom? What does that have to do with anything? Well,
It's a
let's look at the Levirate law, and see what happens when the brother of a man who passes away, and apparently is the only redeemer, is supposed to raise up children with the man's wife, and he doesn't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. So they had a system for that. And so, and it embittered the woman. But now let's turn to Deuteronomy 25. So, give you a moment to get there, 25. And this will really be interesting. The roots of this custom started way back in the Law, Volume 2, Deuteronomy 25, verse 9. If someone, when you get there, would read for us 25, 9 in Deuteronomy.
Here.
Actually, we could go a little bit further back. Let's go to verse 5. 25, verse 5. Anybody have it?
If brothers are living together, and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her, and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. However, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the town gate and say, my husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me. Then the elders of his town shall summon him and talk to him. If he persists in saying, I do not want to marry her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to the man who will not build up his brother's family line. That man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled.
So there was an element of
Did you say no? Unsandaled?
the unsandaled, yeah.
Oh, I said sandal pulled off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
of him who
Yep,
had
sandal pulled off. What an interesting custom. Now, in this, obviously, when the woman comes to the elders and say he won't fulfill his responsibility, now what's the next thing? The elders summon him and try to persuade him. This is how it's done. This is your duty. What's your problem with that? And if he just is stubbornly going to refuse, he's willing to accept the consequences, which in this case are going to be lasting. And so then they go through this ritual, and I don't know if she hocks a loogie or if she just does a little, probably.
Yeah.
But the idea is, it's a way of saying this is a shameful thing, and you're willing to do that rather than do your duty. And then she pulls off the sandal. Now that's the original part of this. Can you imagine? You might ask me about the nuances of this. I'm not an expert in this law, but that's one of the reasons they had Pharisees. The Pharisees wanted to know the ins and outs of all of the law to try and get as precise as possible. And you can imagine how complex that would be. But at least we have, and apparently when Ruth was written, they had to be reminded of the sandal ritual. So apparently that had gone by the wayside. Because the narrator in Ruth actually reminds the people. Now, in those days, you pull off the sandal, and the people might have had to be refreshed that in Deuteronomy, this was if you wouldn't fulfill the levirate law for your brother, there was this stigma that went with it. Well, in this case, there was nobody to spit in his face. He removed his sandal according to the custom. And it was a minor kind of a thing because there was another heir. So it wasn't going to follow him around forever because Boaz was there to take over. Yes?
Our translation says other laws. When you read 11, ours is pretty clear. What does yours say?
Verse 11?
Severe punishments.
Oh, don't read
Ours
11.
is another law. It's a teacher.
Oh, tell me which version.
Verse 11.
Verse 11,
All
right underneath the one that Jim finished
If
reading.
two men are having a fight and the wife of one tries to help her husband by grabbing hold of the other man's genitals, show her no mercy, cut off her hand.
Ooh, yikes.
She better stay in that kitchen making cookies.
Well, I'm sorry I was confused when you said verse 11, I was looking at Ruth 11.
I
wasn't
just
looking-
found that
I-
one.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
just
That's
so
worse than
loving.
Yeah.
So understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd
So,
rather get spit in the face.
and as you go on, I mean, it's very, very complex,
Yeah.
very strange.
So did
Bizarre.
they actually, if those were the laws in Deuteronomy, did they actually have those and carry out the outcome of those? If the elders said that.
I have to assume at times they really tried to follow it. And when we look at it, we say, well, this is so unjust and terrible. For them, that might have been survival.
Yeah.
How you carry on the family line, because in our most primitive, I believe, in our most primitive form before the law, it was survival of the fittest. You know, I'm strong enough to take this, I'm taking it. And that's kind of how that went. And survival of the fittest was not gonna work for humans. And so God intervened. And but it's messy. And we certainly don't practice these things today in this form, but they're part of our heritage and what has led us to this place.
But in a way, isn't that really the backbone or the framework for the ruling of religious rules
Mhm.
for even in our church?
Yeah. And
It also says it's a man's fault.
in this, it's very much patriarchal.
Even
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
there are male-dominated
Yeah.
churches.
And very patriarchal. And it might have been a survival thing from the earliest times, that these are the roles and this is how we survive best. But over time, you know, think of how radical it is that when Jesus said in Christ, or when Paul said in Christ, there is no male nor female.
That was pretty
That was
radical.
totally radical,
Oh,
yeah.
totally.
I mean, we're still grappling with that today. There is no slave nor free, there is no rich nor poor, there is no Greek nor Jew. My goodness.
Yeah.
You know, so we're still grappling with that and what God's ultimate destination for us is, and we're just on the journey and doing it imperfectly on the way. So we can look back at our history and say, thank God we're not doing that now, but then we look at ourselves and say, well, we still have a long way to go. So and I think it's important to be able to read our Bible and own that. Yes, our history comes from a patriarchal, but that's the way the world was. And we don't sweep it under the rug and say, well, that never happened.
No, that's what's history.
We learned from it, hopefully, or we're learning from it.
Right.
And that's where Jesus was interpreting the law and fulfilling the law in the way that the Pharisees couldn't do. They were trying to really make this I'm going to hit you over the head with these rules and regulations. Jesus' phrase was, you have heard it said, to love your neighbor and hate your enemy. That's in the law. What I say is, love your enemies. So Jesus is going to the spirit of the law because he knows it, rather than how humans had it interpreted. We got a lot from it, you know, a lot from the structure, but parts of it needed to be corrected. And I love how the Bible corrects that. So when someone reads this and says, how can you follow a God that would tell people to do this? Well, don't just read that, read the whole story and see how this was God working with people with limited understanding in a fallen world and bringing us to something new and continuing on to fulfill God's will instead of ours. Yeah.
I think one thing though, in doing Bible study, the walk away has been a huge impact of understanding that just like sociology, history, historically true, you have helped us to understand that everything that we read was in the culture of that time.
Mhm.
And in that time, it was how they survived,
Yes.
or that they practiced
Mhm.
their belief. And then we glean what it is and then see where, we are.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the origin of the sandal. And apparently that was far enough in the past. Remember at the beginning, what the beginning line of this, it wasn't once upon a time, it was in the time of the judges. So the people who were hearing this were quite a distance removed time-wise from that, because they had now come through the time of the kings. This went back to the time of the judges. So there's some centuries. And so, yeah, so the beginning of the Book of Ruth, or the Book of Loyal Friendship, says in the time of the judges instead of once upon a time. So it gives them a framework. And in verse 7, we get a clue of that when it says, now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, one drew off the sandal and gave it to the other. And this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So we even have the Bible saying to itself, well, this is how the law was received by Moses, and it was practiced, and we don't do that anymore. Even they didn't do that anymore. So they had learned to interpret the law differently. So we are right to follow Jesus in saying, well, that's why we don't follow some of these literally. Because even they did that in the time of Ruth. That had gone by the wayside. They had to be reminded of it.
When we looked up the Book of Ruth, what was its importance and significance, it was very interesting. It said it was one of the most beautiful love stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think of love stories, you think of Hallmark, et cetera, type of thing. But it's interesting. It's not really the love of Boaz and Ruth. It is the love that God actually had for a loving, serving daughter, Ruth, because she was so loving to her mother-in-law, Naomi, that she made the covenant. And then the love that then went for Boaz, because he wanted to accept the responsibility, the family, the lineage,
the community,
and the community.
God's people.
And so it was about redemption. It was about the greatest love, because God helped them and it all came together. Yeah.
Now, this is a good thing. Our word love, when you think of the biblical concepts behind it, the biblical languages had different words. It's like the Eskimos have 39 words for snow, because of the different types. And we don't, since we don't depend upon that, so we just say snow. But they would get more specific with their different words for the type of snow. Same with love. We have the word love, but yes, and so I wanted to review. So you said one, it's agape, and that is the covenantal, self-giving, I pledge to you. That's the kind of love that God shows. I will be your God. I'm going to make a covenant with you. I will provide for you. I'm going to spread my cloak over you, my wings, my pinions. So that's agape love. It isn't contingent. It's unconditional. I will spread my cloak over you if you obey, and do everything you're supposed to. No. Now you can stay in relationship or you can leave the relationship, but it's not contingent upon you fulfilling some sort of part of the bargain. If you stay in relationship, the covenant remains intact, and the one who made the covenant, the covenant that Ruth made to Naomi, I will, and she followed through on it. Come what may, I will be, your God will be my God, your people will be my people, and I will stay with you.
So are we saying that in the Book of Ruth, there was multiple types of love? One
Yes,
for the community, one for the husband that she was going to have.
So we have agape, but do you know one of the other words?
Is it phileo?
Phileo. So, well, the way I do it is PH, like Philadelphia. PHILEO is how we would transliterate the Greek. And when you hear Philadelphia, it's the city of brotherly love. That's where the phila comes in. Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. So there is familial love, which is reflected here for the kinsmen and for family integrity. And then I would say that also goes for the community, because we're all God's family together. So we have agape, we have phileo, and there's at least one more. Now there's different words for love, but these are the three that I know most prominently. Do you remember the Greek word what's the Greek god that,
Is it Eros?
there you go, Eros.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eros. You know, or Cupid is another, that's the Roman name, I think, for it. Eros. And that is also translated love. All these words, when we see phileo, when we see agape, when we see eros, the Bible just says love. And so we need to dig a little deeper to say, okay, which one is this reflecting? And in this story, we have certainly all three of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's agape love of covenant, you know, that God shows, that the people show, that Ruth shows. There's phileo love with the kinsmen and the familial love and the duties that are performed out of love. And then there's perhaps romantic love or eros as part of it as well. And it's implied. It leaves a little to our imagination how these things were in balance, but they're all present, I believe.
Could you also say that, I'm not sure if it was Ruth, if she had a voice in that, but clearly when she had an heir, it was also the respect for her husband that had passed away.
Yeah.
So is that eros also?
I would say
Familial?
probably the phileo is the communal part of it, but certainly there were, in her heart, yeah, we can imagine that she, as a widow, would still have, you know, I mean, I can't really relate to that, but I imagine that, yeah, those memories, that attachment, yeah, and how we approach Scripture and now what it makes you feel or what makes you think about, that's how Scripture reads us. So I may read this and I may not be thinking about, oh, I wonder, you know, how Ruth was dealing with the loss of Chilion, I think was her husband, or Mahlon, I forget which one. But your experience might say, oh, boy, I can really feel for her, that she still remembers her first husband and what relief she might be feeling that she's fulfilling this duty to him, and the mixed feelings she might have about now I'm married to another, and how that's a gift, or how that might have mixed feelings. You'll read that differently than I will.
Well, you know what, you're right, because usually if the relationship between you and your mother-in-law, if it's a love relationship, it's because you loved your husband so much that you want to help and love the mother-in-law to take care of her. So there had to have been a very deep love between she and her husband to want to do that.
So I feel like I need to play another YouTube video of a song that in our culture, mother-in-law, mother-in-law, the worst person I know.
And then she had the baby, and she had love for the baby.
Oh my gosh.
And that's a different.
I had a hard time.
Just let me be on the record of saying that I do not sing that song because I had a great mother-in-law.
Yes, yes.
I didn't see a whole lot of love in any of this, because it looked like it was trying to acquire property.
Well-
That's all there was to it.
All right, and
I didn't see any love involved,
Okay.
except there could have been, but didn't really outwardly say so.
yeah, and see how what we bring to it will help Scripture to inform and read us, and what's that about? And then I get Jim's perspective, and I get Nancy's, and I get Ethel's, and I get mine, and
During that time frame, culturally, would you invite a woman to sleep by your feet if you didn't have some type of feelings? Or was it just a proposition?
We don't know that,
We don't know that.
because in this case, it was all about property.
Yeah.
One guy turned it down and said, okay, then I'll do it. It was like flipping a coin.
And actually, I don't think he knew that she was coming to.
Yeah, he wasn't,
That was
Boaz didn't,
always
yeah.
the direction.
We can surmise that Boaz noticed Naomi. Who's the young woman out in the field? Oh, or Ruth, rather. I said Naomi. I meant Ruth.
So Ethel, did you say that he didn't know about the property and everything yet?
No.
His eyes were on her
No, what I'm
herself.
saying is that when she laid at his feet, he had no idea that, I mean, that was not at his invitation. Naomi, her mother-in-law,
Is
said,
the one that
it's
instigated
a
that.
custom,
Yep.
go do this, because it
Yeah.
means a certain thing.
Okay.
Yeah, gotta keep it in the family, that's what I got.
And because, and this is me just inferring, so But because, when Boaz first noticed Ruth, the story doesn't tell us, well, I'm gonna figure out a way to get her.
Right,
So apparently, that's not where his mind was,
right.
or that wasn't done. So when you ask, might he have said, come and lay at my feet? Probably not. It probably had to happen this way to be proper. That she voluntarily and with the permission of her mother who said, your mourning period's done, you go do this. That, to me, that makes it feel like it was more appropriately done. Now, that may have, certainly Boaz was thrilled and happy about that, and maybe that's what he wanted. But he wasn't the one that took action to make it
And I
happen.
realized we could turn this into a real study, because we could look into Naomi, how much did she love her daughter-in-law, that she wanted to protect her, that when she's gone, she wanted her daughter-in-law to have
Right.
a home of her own, or carry on her
Right.
son's legacy.
Right. And the other thing I think is that how many times do we see in the Bible that we lay something at the feet of Jesus? We are relinquishing whatever we're dealing with. We cast it on to him. And so she is saying, go offer yourself, remind him that there is a responsibility here, and that you are, now connected to him in some way. Don't know, just.
Thinking your
our
own experience
interpretation.
now too about trying to, in the time before these possibilities came about, when Naomi was calling her, said, don't call me Naomi, because life is not agreeable for me. Call me Mara, bitter.
Bitter.
All right. Think about times in your life that you have tried to console someone who's inconsolable. And when someone whose grief is so heavy and persistent, and you want for them, I wish they could manage this grief and deal with it, or accept it, or deal with their anger, or come through it, or we have those, and when people are stuck in that place, it's hard sometimes to be around them, or to be persistent in our love and service. This is what Ruth attached herself to.
Right.
I'm going to be with this woman no matter what, even though I know her moods, even though I know she's very pessimistic and thinks God's turned against her. So I think, it wasn't all roses for Ruth when she bound herself to Naomi. I think Naomi was in a place where that would be very difficult to be with someone who's, it's like Eeyore. I mean, everything is against me, and she had justification for that. But Ruth was loyal through that. And so that's another part of familial love. She really ministered to someone who was not easy to minister to in that state. That would have been very difficult.
And she took on the responsibility, actually, of going out and gathering food on a daily basis, so that they would have some sustenance.
Yeah.
Meaning Ruth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So really, it wasn't, even though at first you're thinking that the mother-in-law is the one has taken her in and she's gonna take care of Ruth, but in essence,
Yeah.
it's really Ruth is taking care of the mother-in-law.
right,
Interesting.
Yeah, and when Naomi was telling the daughters to go back to Moab in the beginning, the implication is, there's nothing for me and there's nothing for you, just leave me to die. That's where I get from. And sometimes we run into situations in life where people feel like there's no reason for me to go on. And that's really difficult, because if we feel for them and want them not to be there, sometimes we can be supportive, but we can't take that on ourselves and own it. We have to be supportive, but we have to love with the kind of detach that, I want you to prosper, get help, heal, or manage, or go forward. And I will do everything I can, but eventually that's going to be something you have to grow into. Very, very difficult. But very telling about the relationships and how complex they are. And look how much we're mining from this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I appreciate the discussion. I never knew Ruth was such a wonderful book. 4 chapters, but wow, it had a lot of meat to it.
And then the twist at the end, not twist, but the kind of moral of the story at the end is going to really add not only is Ruth a remarkable person, but guess what about Ruth? But we'll
Yeah.
get there. Let's see. So then the next of kin, verse 8, says to Boaz, buy it for yourself, throw off his sandal. And then Boaz, according to the customs, lifts up the sandal and says to the elders, you're witnesses this day that I have, and I'm going to say claimed instead of bought, I have claimed from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and to his offspring, Chilion and Mahlon. I've claimed it. I've redeemed it. Also, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, there it is. I had the wrong one. It's Mahlon. I have claimed to be my wife, so I've spread my cloak over her. I will be her protector and her
Right.
to perpetuate, and also in the Levirate law, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren, and that's all the tribes, not just his brothers, from the gate of his native place. You are all witnesses this day. There's the tribal, everything's been done appropriately, all have agreed. The other kinsman can go about his business, he's free of that, and everything's been done appropriately. Okay, so then we get into a little bit of the celebration afterwards, all the people who were at the gate and the elders. So I'm guessing these proceedings didn't take place in a clatch that was private. This was a communal spot. The elders were the ones discussing and deliberating, but there were people listening in because the community, it was important for them to see these things and be able to pass along, this is what truly happened. They all said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. So that's a way of not only blessing him to say that I hope you have children and prosperity and that this is all good, but they now take a Moabite who is a Gentile, foreigner, unclean, whatever you want to call it. May she be like Rachel and Leah, and we're getting into the all-stars of the Hebrew people. So may she be grafted in as one of them and bring offspring. When you first read that in our culture, you wouldn't notice how radical that is. A Moabite being put in the same category as Rachel and Leah, scandalous, outrageous, or miraculous and graceful. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem, the house of bread. And may your house be like the house, and then it goes to more ancestors, the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah because of the children of the Lord, that the Lord will give you by this young woman. Now, she's invoked Rachel and Leah, all stars of the Hebrew people. She's invoked Perez and Judah, and Judah, who had a child with Tamar. All of this is thoroughly Hebrew. And yet they're saying, may this Moabite woman be like them. So that's pretty amazing and telling. All right, then here's where you telescope. You take a long period of time and you, like a telescope, fold it into it. So we have one sentence that gives us a long period of time. Verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Boom, one sentence. Boy, that happened fast.
Yeah, right.
So again, this is storytelling. The women said to Naomi, again, they said, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin, like you thought when you were thinking God was totally against you and you'd lost everything and you'd given up hope. May his name be renowned in all Israel, your heir, the child, the offspring, the male offspring. He shall be to you a restorer of life and nourisher in your old age. What's your translation say?
May he restore your youth and care for you in your old age.
Okay, so now this is what the women are saying to Naomi, who now has a grandson. And I love the NLT that says, this will restore your youth. It's almost like your bitterness,
Yeah.
you know,
You are now taking
your
back
bitterness
your
is
dominion.
aging you, and this is going to be a relief for that.
Ours says brings life to you.
Brings life, exactly. A restorer of life is in the Revised Standard. And then also, mine says nourisher in your old age. What does yours say?
Security.
Security. Anybody else? That's the concept, yeah.
Yeah,
Now that you have a male heir,
right.
you once again are not only do you have that privilege, you now have security, someone to provide for you, someone to give you standing, and the family name continues. All of that's wrapped up in there.
Pastor?
Yes.
So when, it said that, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, did he make sure she had a son then?
That's up to individual interpretation as to how much is God orchestrating this.
Right.
How much is God orchestrating? And that's part of my question when we get to the end here, and we say, well, yeah, just read the Book of Ruth. What did that tell us about God? There's not a lot in Ruth that actually explicitly has God as a character in this book. It's implicit. God is, in my view, this is my interpretation, God is working behind the scenes.
Right.
And how much of this is God's providence? And you might want to say, and God had a hand in making sure it was a male heir. That's perfectly legitimate. Others might say, well, God created us, and that's kind of, that's how things work, and it could have been a boy, could have been a girl, but it worked out this way. And that may have, it may have been more physical and mechanical than it was God intervening. We'll never agree on how much one is the other. But if you're like me, I look at the whole and say, thank God for God's
Right.
faithfulness and
Because
providence.
it just seems so real that
Mhm.
it would be a male and God did have a hand in it, like nativity.
Mhm.
We knew Jesus was going to be born and we knew it was going to be a little boy,
Mhm.
you know?
I think so.
And it was a flip of the coin anyway. Because at the very start, he offered this offer to the guardian redeemer who was senior to Boaz.
Yeah.
And he turned it down.
Yeah.
If he'd accepted, the whole end of the chapter would be completely different. You don't know if it'd been a boy or a girl.
Yeah, did God make the other kinsman
No idea.
redeemer?
Yeah.
Did God
He
make
just
him
said, "I
say
want
no? You can say that. Or did his circumstances make him say no?
Yeah.
How much was God involved with that? And we don't get to know that. I don't have a fatalistic view of God and read fate into that. I don't think God's pulling all the puppet strings. But I think God's providential plan, like Jesus said, the Son of Man goes as it has been determined. God's got an outcome. I'm going to abide by that. Woe to the one who betrays him, Judas, who couldn't accept that and didn't think, he, in his bitterness, he hung himself. He didn't hang on like Peter did.
It's kind of like when you talk about the virtues, wisdom, to understand and have a conscience of being able to choose right or wrong.
Mhm.
And even in these stories, they had the right to choose what the outcome was going to be,
Mhm.
but with God's providence over it too, like a big umbrella, if you will. Because
Mhm.
I imagine, when you said like puppetry, it's interesting. I've always believed that God really was involved in the outcome because that's why the Bible is so important, because God is that involved in our lives and wanted that legacy to live on so we each could have the choice of what we believe.
Now, when we think of the heroes of the faith, of which Ruth is clearly one. In fact, if you remember my place at the Dormition Abbey in Jerusalem, where it's said to be where Mary was laid to rest, and on the ceiling were the hero women. One of them is Ruth the Moabite.
Now we know.
One of them is Ruth the Moabite. And why? What does it say in the last half of that verse? It says, for your daughter-in-law, Naomi, who loves you, is more to you than 7 sons. And that word 7 is very symbolic for the perfect number.
Right.
She has borne you an heir. And so what she's gone through is, and they're not trying to discount or disrespect the memory of the dead. This is just a phrase of saying, look how greatly God has blessed you. So they weren't trying to diss those who died, just saying this is, Naomi has proven to be.
Out of the
Chris is
sadness
trying
came
to
a
get a hold of
positive.
Oh. Uh-oh, okay.
Oh, no, she responded to a party,
Yeah.
never mind.
And that's important.
She said, can't wait. Sorry about that, sorry. So, when you think about it, and it says redemption is a very important characteristic of this book. At first you thought it was about Ruth and Boaz, but really it pertains as much to Naomi,
Mm-hmm.
her redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you read it, one day you might identify more with this character, and the next time you might identify more
I
with
bet you
another.
could read it multiple times and
Yeah,
depending on
it's-
where you're at in your.
That's why it's so rich.
Yeah.
Okay, 16, then Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became his nurse. And the women gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him, and now we go into the genealogy. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now they do a pre-genealogy, because they want to get David's name in there.
Yeah.
That's the key. Because you talk about the Hall of Fame of the Hebrew people and the Jewish, David's going to be, beloved and at the top of that list with Moses. So they wanted to get that in there, but then they did a little more detail in the genealogy. So first they just did that to make sure that they've got the trace to David top of mind. But then they go back and they say, so these are the descendants of Perez, the father of Hezron, Hezron of Ram, Ram of Aminadab, Aminadab of Nahshon, Nahshon of Salmon, Salmon of Boaz, Boaz of Obed, Obed of Jesse, and Jesse of David. Now, when you read a great little novella like this, and you don't have the background, and you see this, well, that's kind of a crappy way to end it. I mean, you go to a genealogy, at least when I was a teenager, that's how I would have read it. It's like, oh. But now I get an idea of the significance of that.
Right.
So when you have a reaction like I did, just be persistent. God will bring things out into your understanding. It may take 60 years for you, like it did for me.
It's an awful.
Yes. Okay. So next, what I need to do is I'm going to take us to a place where I'm going to kind of. Hopefully I'll get this right for the people at home. I'm sharing my screen and I'm going to start a slide because the way we started this study was to say we're going to translate these names because those names had significance for the people that we wouldn't get otherwise. And yes, Jim?
I just wondered what happened to Ruth. It says Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. It said Naomi has a son.
Mm-hmm.
And the description down at the bottom says maybe that was Naomi took him, adopted the son. So that confuses things a little bit. We're talking about Ruth the whole time. Now it says Naomi took the son. So
Interesting.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know if that, and I would have to study that to know if that was a possibility or if
So did
that's.
Ruth not raise her son? Oh,
Yeah, it's hard to, I would think the family, in those times, the family remained
they
very
just
close.
raised the children.
They were so interdependent and so forth. I'm hoping that the people at home can see,
And you could.
oops, I didn't mean to do that.
Baby and-
That's,
No, that's why I said,
darn
no,
it.
she just took it. But it says possibly in the.
Okay.
It says in
I want to go
It says like
to, okay,
she
this,
had to adopt, so
boy, I'm trying to,
to get
this
an
is
heir
what I
in
wanna
place of
do.
Mahlon, so she could-
okay, so if you would look at the translation of the names, through the offspring the Lord gives you by the young woman, may your family be like that of, and I guess I didn't do Perez, I'm sorry. Oh wait, Perez means breach or burst forth,
Wow.
right? But whom Tamar, date or palm tree, that was her tribal name, bore to Judah, and I should have translated that one. I think I did that earlier in the beginning. I might have to go back. Perez means breach or birth forced, reflecting the circumstances of his birth when he unexpectedly came out before his twin brother. Now, how that operates, I have no idea. His twin brother was named Zerah, dawn, shine. Okay, Perez was the son of Judah and Tamar, and his name is a testament to the divine plan that unfolds through unexpected means. There's twins, and for some reason, the one ended up coming out first that wasn't expected, and that, so the name burst forth is a way of attesting to God. Boy, doesn't God work in marvelous and mysterious ways, unexpected ways?
We were laughing because remember in the 60s when and you had a child, there was sunshine, there was stars, and all the things. It's like, hey, we weren't that bad.
Yeah, right. So, and the women living there says Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Did I not translate these?
But
I
it
thought I
doesn't say
did.
what Obed means.
Hold on. Well, maybe I gotta go.
I think it means slumber.
Let me go. The women living there said that. Oh, here we go. I translated it below. So Naomi is beautiful, agreeable, has a son, and they named him Obed, which is worshiper, servant.
Oh.
So okay, so I paralleled this. I did this weeks ago, so I forgot. He was the father of Jesse, God exists. The father of David, beloved. Those are the translations.
So David means father of beloved.
No, it means beloved. David is.
Batteries for running low.
Oh, did I not plug it in? Oh, no wonder there's a.
Oh.
Well, I guess we're back. I'm sorry about that. I got a new power strip and forgot to turn it on, and that's why the microphone wasn't working either. So, boy, so much for my technological abilities. I hope we're back. It looks like people mostly stuck with us, and the recording's back in progress. Okay, so let's go to the next slide if I can. Come on. Well, maybe it won't let me. There we go. And this then is the family of Perez, which means burst forth, unexpected, was the father of Hezron, and what I did is the translation of Hezron is enclosed. You'd have to look further to see why it was enclosed, but that was his tribal name. The father of Ram, which is high exalted. The father of Aminadab, which is my people are noble. The father of Nashon, which is either diviner, serpent, hisser. Yeah. The father of Salmon. Oh, and I put this in. Nashon means diviner or hisser and is a name of a significant figure from the tribe of Judah who was the leader and representative of Judah during the Exodus and direct ancestor of King David. He is renowned for his courage and faith, particularly for leading the tribe of Judah and stepping out first at the Red Sea. And you think of a diviner as someone who I've heard of a divining rod where they try to find water.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
All right, and then peaceful, perfect.
Found oil.
Well, first thing you know.
And let's see, let me go back. Salmon, okay, so Salmon translates to peaceful, perfect. Salmon, peaceful, perfect, or he that rewards. is the father of Boaz, which means in him is strength. We had that at the beginning. The father of Obed, which means worshiper servant. The father of Jesse, which means God exists. And then the father of David, which means beloved. Okay, I'm sorry that was so confusing, but
That's good.
I wanted to at least give you the significance of some of the names
Glad he got
and
it.
how that goes.
What does James mean?
I don't remember.
Oh, we
Have
looked
to
that
look it
up. I
up.
forgot what
Yeah,
it
we'll
was.
have to
You
look
guys
it
looked
up.
at that
Yeah.
once.
I'm afraid to find out. Okay, so with that, I better.
Teacher of scripture.
Escape. and
Teacher of
then
scripture?
Yeah.
I gotta go to
Oh,
the
that's gorgeous.
Zoom.
Wow.
Good
Wow,
grief.
that is so pretty.
That's what I want, and now I have to, I don't know if I even had the share screen on for that, I'm
Is
sorry if I
on
didn't.
here, Mickey?
Okay, I guess we're there.
Yeah, she was.
All right, to close, good, we have just a couple of minutes. And I believe this is gonna lead us to our next focus. And that is, as we've brought the close, and we can spend some time next week on the wrap-up of what we think Ruth means. In my situation, let me do this.
How did Ruth's husband die? Her first husband?
I don't think
Did
it
it
said,
say?
Didn't say.
it just said he died,
Yeah.
so you don't get to have that detail. And that's the,
Look up the obituary.
let's see.
Where's his obit?
Share.
Obituary.
Slideshow, current slide.
That's a gorgeous picture.
There we go, okay. Here's a little wrap up on the purpose, we can pick up with this.
Oh, here we go.
And this is a paragraph I found in my studies. And so you can take this and just for what it's worth, but this is one of the things I found from a book by Phyllis Tribble. Attempts to specify a single purpose for the Book of Ruth falter in light of the book's richness and complexity. It's hard to boil it down, there's so much there. Many levels of meaning intertwined: social, political, religious, aesthetic. A representative list of what the themes or purposes might be. Well, to maintain Israelite customs, okay. To inculcate legal duties and how that integrates into familial love, phileo. To integrate law and daily life together. To legitimate David and his monarchy, all right, so that was important. To tell a good story, yeah, that's okay, that's good. To encourage proselytes are converts. To promote universalism over nationalism, and I'll talk more about that. To elevate the virtues of friendship, and that's what the book is called, that's what Ruth's name means, friendship and loyalty. To glorify family ties, to preserve women's traditions, and witness to God at work. So there is a list, but Phyllis herself says this is not a comprehensive list. You're going to come up with more because it's so rich and complex. So if we want to reflect more at the beginning of next class on what you got out of it, we might add to this list. And the preview that I will give you is what I was given in seminary. And I really swallowed hook, line, and sinker, and it's affected me in a good way for a long time, but I've since kind of backed off and realized there are other perspectives, and part of it is what I read from Phyllis Tribble. My Old Testament professor was really heavy on the reason for the writing of the Book of Ruth was to write in protest to the customs that when the people returned from exile and the reforms that were brought about by Ezra and Nehemiah, they were so harsh towards the foreigners that the Book of Ruth was written in protest of Ezra and Nehemiah. And that's what I'd like to do next time. Ezra and Nehemiah aren't fun stories. They're stories.
Did they think they made up the story of Ruth, or they included it because it was?
Yeah, I can't prove it. I don't think it was made up out of whole cloth. I think they put it in this form and it became scripture as a way of balancing what you find in Ezra and Nehemiah, which you will find.
What does whole cloth mean?
They just made it up out of nothing.
Okay.
They just conjured it.
Okay.
I think it was historical. And there were story elements to it, but I think it was historical. But the fact that the author emphasized it the way the author did and the way the community received it, and it became part of the canon, alongside books like Ezra and Nehemiah, we now look back and say, well, when I read, and you have to know what Ezra and Nehemiah says, I'll give you a preview. Why would a book have to be written in protest of another book of the Bible? Okay, the preview, and if you don't mind studying a little of Ezra and Nehemiah for the next couple of weeks, is when the people returned from exile and they went through the challenges of trying to rebuild and reconstitute their identity. Ezra and Nehemiah were leaders who tried to help the people through that, and they did great things, but they did very human things too. And one of the things that they did, saying, you know, the reason we lost all of this in the first place and went into exile, you know what Solomon did? I mean, for all his wisdom, he took foreign wives and they brought their idols with them, and he tolerated worship of other than God. And so God punished us, and that became the way we did things. And we turned our backs on God, and we took foreign wives, and they brought their gods, and we just said, okay, that's fine. And then it's called syncretism. You take your religion and you water it down with the others, and rather than stay true to it. Now, I think there's truth to that. And Ezra and Nehemiah were trying to tell the people, we can't turn our backs on God. We need to turn to God and be faithful. Look at the terrible consequences when we turn our backs on God. I can go along with that. But then they tried to put reforms in place that said, and here's how you do that. Those of you, and there's a whole bunch of them that came back from exile, they'd married Babylonians, they'd married, all kinds of foreign wives. And not to belabor it too much, but the Revised Standard Version in Ezra says, you must put away your foreign wives and children. That is a very antiseptic way of saying you must abandon them.
So they wanted a more pure society.
Yes. And so Ezra and Nehemiah, and we'll see that, and you'll find it distasteful, because it is. And you'll find that Ezra is saying, just cast them aside, let them die. Throw them out in the wilderness.
Wow.
They are polluting us with their gods, and God will be angry. So I think Ezra and Nehemiah, for all the great things they did, are like me. Well, I know what God wants, and here's how we implement it. And they came up with this human thing that said, put away your foreign wives. Leave them out to die. Just sever it all.
So are you saying that there is a theory then that Ruth was placed in the Bible in a canon?
To counter that very thing, to say, wait a minute, before you go blaming everything on the
because she was
foreigners.
Moabite.
Yes.
And she not only was that, but then she became the lineage.
Exactly.
Responsible for the lineage of Jesus.
This Moabite, who was the great-grandmother of David,
Right,
and was compared to Rachel and Leah.
right.
So my Old Testament professor said that's why Ruth was written, or that's why Ruth was included. Now, I may have taken that too seriously, because for me it was a great insight. And I thought, oh, the Bible, when there's something in there that leaves us hanging, why would God want that? It comes back to correct. And I'm glad I got that insight. But I shouldn't have just decided that it's purpose literature, because that may not be the case. But I still think it's useful, because now we have to balance those two together. Ezra and Nehemiah are telling people, be pure, turn your hearts to God. We can go with that. But then they said, to do that, just don't even care about your obligations to the foreign people. And that part, we look and say, wait a minute, and the Bible corrects that, in my view.
Here's another thought with that. Ruth becomes folded into the Jewish family, even though she's not Jewish, recognizing that Gentiles are now welcome into Jesus.
Yeah, which is.
And what faith she had to say, your people will be my people.
Right.
Yeah.
And your God will be my God.
Yeah.
So
Which is.
I can almost hear Jesus saying to you in astoundment, your faith has made you well.
Right.
To the woman who was a foreigner, and Jesus said, I don't throw the crumbs to the dogs. And she said, the dogs eat from the master's table. And he said, your faith has made you well. I see Ruth in acting the way that she did.
Right.
Okay.
It was a four.
This has been for me a remarkably fun study. Thank you for going through it.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry for the technical snafu that I just.
I think when we do the closure on that, I think really we could add to that though. I love the idea that the Book of Ruth exemplifies all the different types of loves. That is so cool.
Mhm.
Do you all agree? Thumbs up if
Yes.
you agree.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
If, as we close here, let me ask
Thumbs
for
up.
our next time together, if you would like,
Come on, you.
you don't have to, but
Now you may fight with him.
yes. After I pray and turn off the recording, I'll tell you the reason for it too. But for next time, voluntarily if you wish, start looking at Ezra,
Yeah, you bet.
Okay,
because that
right.
comes before Nehemiah. The
Yeah.
period is the same.
We'll read that.
So start looking at that and don't go to it thinking, think of it like I'm going to be reading the prophets. It's not always fun to read this, but it's good knowledge to have. And there's some good story aspects to it as well, but it won't be as fun to read as Ruth. But I think it's important for us now to see the juxtaposition.
Yeah, I
So
see
we'll look
that.
at Ezra and Nehemiah, we'll do that for the next couple of weeks,
All right.
as long as you can tolerate it, and then we'll see where it leads us. Let me offer a prayer. Merciful and gracious God, thank you for guiding us in these ways. Help us to trust in your providence, and where the Bible reads us and leaves us to speculate, help us to trust that you're working in that too. Thank you for love in all of its forms. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you.
Stop the recording now for those of you that are
So much.